Hey everybody, welcome back to CALLOUS Draft League Week 5 action. Getting late in this 6-week regular season. Covering all the teams, as I do every week. It is Team Draft Week, and we've got pink versus green in this one. We've got Bokk, who I don't think most of you guys know, and I'm not sure if I've featured him yet in this series. Don't know if he's been on the channel before, but I guess he's a friend of a friend, so good enough for me. I didn't know that until the other day. Now I know. I can't tell you how I know that. It's a secret, but it's something that I now know. And then our player 2 is going to be Gold or Mason or Gold Mason, either or. He hosts and/or helps out with many tours. He is a commentator for Gymvitational along with myself, and he's never before won a game of Pokemon, but there could be a first time for everything. Though this may require a miracle. This may be too much to ask. Let's get into it. Bokk on the pink team, Gold on the green team. These teams very much in playoff contention. Green, in fact, is in first place by a good margin. But pink, I believe, is in second place coming into this. Either that or they're tied for third, but they are very much in the hunt. Let's get into it. The first ban by way of Bokk is Skarmory. Kate. Snorlax coming back. So far, nothing to see here. Bokk is going to go with Celebi. And then this is where it gets surprising because now, no matter what happens, one of Cheetar or Metagross is going to get through. And a lot of people, I guess not these two people, but a lot of people think those are the two best Mons in the format. So, not great that your opponent has to get one. However, logically, and I think that Gold makes a mistake here. I think this is what you're supposed to do. I think that if they're both available, then you keep them both available because then you get one as player 2. If you ban one here, which is what Gold ultimately decides to do, then he's just giving one of them to his opponent, but he's not getting one for himself, which I think is worse. So if I'm Gold here, I would just ban whatever, Gengar, Blissey, Starmie, something to that effect. And I would at this point let both the Cheetar and the Meta through so we can grab one. But he sees it differently, or he doesn't see those as the 1 and 2 best Mons in the format, either or. But he's going to ban Metagross, and in doing so, he's going to give his opponent Cheetar, and he's going to take a Pokemon, or I guess 2 Pokemon that I think are very much not as good as Cheetar on the swing back. So don't like the draft strategy. Like I said, if you get to the point where both Meta and Tar are available with only one ban to go, I think at that point you just let him through so you make sure you get one. But he did it a different way, and that is his prerogative. He's the one playing. So what he is going to do as a response to this Cheetar is Aerodactyl and Blissey. In my opinion, that's probably a smidge early for Aerodactyl. It's definitely good, but I don't know that I like it better than a couple of the other options available here. I think I rate both Regice and Starmie a little bit higher than Aerodactyl, but obviously a good Mon. These are never going to be bad picks, and it's also dangerous to pass the Aero-Tar combo back, so it could be a little bit of wanting to deny that particular combo, which is acceptable to me. However, I'm not surprised at all by Bokk's response now because Gold kind of walked into this given what he took. It's going to be both Milotic and Swampert here, and by Milotic, I mean Milotic, not Minun, so let me go ahead and fix that misclick. Milotic and Swampert here. Can't blame him, right? I mean, you have 2 big physical threats, one on each side, the Cheetar and the Arrow, and you're both going to want Bulky Waters to respond to the other. So grabbing both of them here in one swoop, I think is wise. I think is where you want to be, and that's obviously going to give his Cheetar an advantage over the Aerodactyl just by virtue of taking these. Now, Gold is going to go with Raikou Regice. Again, I don't necessarily like the Raikou here or think it's as good as he seems to think it is. To me, Starmie, again, blatantly better. I think Zapdos blatantly better. So I would have gone for those. However, something that could be good, something I will give Gold credit for, if he's going to take Blissey Regice, which he has, and if other walls like Lax, like Celebi are already gone, which they are, then maybe that bumps Raiku's value up a little bit, and maybe you can justify taking it this early. The Regice pick I definitely like. It's for sure in my mind a top 10 mon in the format at this point. It's just very, very clear to me. So the Regice I would grab. I'm not sure about the Raikou. Again, for me, Starmie stands out a lot more. Gengar is also still floating, so I would have preferred either of those Pokemon over Raikou personally, but if he is viewing the Raikou as going up in value because he has Blissey and Regice, still not the pick that I would personally make, but I can accept that chain of thought. On the other end, it is going to be Zapdos and Starmie. Those are pretty straightforward picks, and that's pretty damn late for a Starmie as far as I'm concerned. Now, granted, it is two special mons into two special walls, so in that regard, could you argue that maybe he was supposed to take something else here? For example, can you go like Fori Gar or Fori Salamence or something to that effect here? Sure, but Starmie is a mon that I rate very, very highly. I wouldn't pass that up here. I would grab it regardless of the fact that there's Blissey, Raikou, Regice on the other side. The Zapdos I'm not as sure about. I don't hate that pick, but like I said, I wonder if like Gar or Fori or something to that effect. Honestly, maybe even Hariyama, both to protect your Tar and to target the Blissey and the Regice on the other side. I think those all would have been considerations for me. He's got the double water and now the triple water with Starmie, so that's certainly one good reason to not want Zapdos on the other side. So again, if that factored into the thought process, fine. But pretty wild to me that Gengar, Salamence, a couple other mons that are usually picked pretty damn highly are still floating here. And as I say that, Gold is going to go ahead and pick neither of those. He's going to go with Jolteon and Registeel. So Gold seems to have a strategy here. He seems pretty intent on locking down the special walls. So he's got the Blissey, the Regice, and the Registeel along with double electric. I don't dislike the Jolteon here. Good into Milo, good into Starmie. Decent enough against the rest of this stuff. And like I said, special threats are, at this time, better for him than they would be for his opponent. By that logic, do you hold off on the Jolteon because it's not very likely that your opponent will take it? Maybe. Again, it's very surprising to me that Gengar in particular, or Salamence, either or, are not grabbed in this position, but Gold is at least being consistent. He has a plan. He's got basically 3 fast mons and 3 special walls, so a polarized team that seemingly has a plan, and we'll see if it pans out for him. Bokk is going to wrap up round 1 with Salamence and Hariyama, and with that, I think whether it gets banned or picked, and I would imagine that it gets banned by player 1, so player 2 can't just grab it, but that is going to be definitely the latest Gengar that we have ever seen in this format. I am shocked that it's making it through even to this point, but like I said, I'd be just as shocked if Bokk doesn't ban it out and lets Gold just grab it at the beginning of round 2. There's no way he should allow that to happen, right? The first ban here is going to go to Gold. He's going to get rid of Regirock, so he's going to take 2 of the Reggies and then ban out the other. A ban that I think Gold should be targeting here is Steelix because he's the Arrow double electric drafter, and Steelix is pretty damn good against all of those, so that would be a mon that I would be looking to get rid of if I were in Gold's seat, and likewise, if he doesn't get rid of it, that would be a mon that I'd be looking to grab from Bokk's seat, but nevertheless, Bokk is instead going to take out Dragonite. Knight isn't really a counter pick into much of anything. It's just a really versatile, really solid generalist. I don't know that Knight does anything in particular against his squad. I actually think it's better against Gold's squad, since a combo of like Flamethrower, Dragon Dance, Earthquake, what have you, is pretty good against all of what Gold has. Like again, I could just, as is always the case with Dragonite, I could customize a set right now impromptu that hits every single one of those things. So, okay, it's got Flamethrower, Focus Punch, Thunderbolt, and Earthquake. There you go. Hits all of this stuff. And that's just what Dragonite does. It's just such a versatile, customizable Mon that I think you can just make into a threat in basically any matchup. But like I said, I actually kind of think it's better against Gold than it is against Bokk. So, I mean, if you respect the Knight and you want to get rid of him, that's fine. I respect the Knight a lot too. I think it's very good. But I wonder if he should have tried to take that for himself. And we'll never know because we don't know how keen Gold was on picking that up or how highly he rates it. So Gold is going to remove Charizard, which I can accept because all three of his special walls are vulnerable to it, two of them directly to the fire, and of course Blissey to the Focus Punch that Zard often carries, so that is a sensible ban in my opinion. And then a little bit strange here. This guy I don't think has been valued as highly in this format as he maybe could be or should be, but Breloom is going to go, and I'm not clear exactly why that is. That seems like another poke that, I mean, this one even more so than Dragonite, that I think is definitely better against Gold than it is against Bokk. As far as dealing with Breloom on the other side, I mean, you've already got 3 fighting resists. You've got the Zapdos that could drill peck it, the Mence that could HP flying. Those are one-hit KOs. Starmie could have Psychic, which can easily be a one-hit KO. I don't think if you're Bokk, I mean, yes, he has a T-Tower, but I don't think if you're Bokk, you're all that worried about Breloom. Whereas Breloom against Gold hits the Registeel, the Regice, and the Blissey really, really well. And none of this other stuff really wants to switch into a Focus Punch or a Spore or whatever either. So that's a strange ban to me and not a ban that I think that I like or agree with. I think that he should have banned something else and probably taken the Breloom. I think, like I said, he's weirdly evaluating that the Breloom is somehow better against him than it is against his opponent, and that is not an assessment that I agree with. The other weird thing with this ban is that it's letting Gengar through, which is really, really strange. So already disliked the ban, but when you add that factor in, I really dislike the ban. This is by far the latest Gengar has ever been picked. I would be on the floor if Gold somehow passed up on it here. He absolutely should not, and he does not. It's going to be Medicham and Gengar, but like I said, that's a gift, and that's a gift that he never should have received. Absolutely, Bokk should have cut the Gengar over either of these things, certainly over the Breloom. Wild that he's going to grab Gengar in round 2. Obviously, that's later than that Pokemon should go, and that's a big grab. Even if there are some things on the other side that are good against Gengar, it doesn't matter. It's just a really good poke. It shouldn't be available that late. End of story. Bokk is going to commit further to the Spiker Spinner War, which he's currently dominating as he takes Fori and Claydol. So that's going to leave him already with 3 Rapid Spinners compared to 0 Spikers and 0 Spinners for Gold. So he's got a lot of catch up to do in that regard. We'll see if he ends up participating in this, if he's willing to take the lesser Spinners, the Donphans and Armaldos and Tentacruels and Blastoises of the world, or if he's just going to deal with the spikes. I would highly recommend picking up a Spinner or 2, but it's too early in the draft to know exactly where this is going to go. Gold is going to grab Moltres and Flygon. There might be a defensive aspect of taking the Moltres because it's good against his Regis. As far as Moltres against the other side, Hariyama with Thick Fat can shut that off really effectively. Hariyama could also have Rest or Refresh to get rid of Toxic if you're worried about that. The Starmie is obviously good against the Moltres. The Milotic is obviously good against the Moltres. The Zapdos is obviously good against the Moltres. So I don't think the Moltres is all that exciting into Bokk. I could see a world where he actually doesn't even end up bringing it. But again, if he's viewing that as a necessary pick to try to protect his Regice and his Registeel, I'm okay with that. That being said, with Fires being so good into what Gold has, I think that Bokk should consider things Houndoom, Blaziken, Arcanine, whatever. But Fire, I think, is a pretty reasonable attacking type against Gold's squad as it stands. And then as far as the Flygon, I mean, when you're against a T-Tar, you're just going to need as much help as you can get. He definitely has not anywhere close to adequately enough addressed the T-Tar threat yet, but there is still time, and I would like to see him pick up things Vaporeon, Donphan, Slowbro, what have you, and stack multiple layers of resistance against that T-Tar. Flygon's a good first step, but it's nowhere near enough. But no problem with the pick. Gonna need more picks like that to not just get swept by a DD-Tar. On the other side, I like these picks. These feel like direct responses to what's going on the other side. It's going to be Umbreon and Blaziken. The Umbreon certainly gets better if you're going to let Gengar go through. I still don't agree with letting Gengar go through, but if we're living in the present, not in the past, the Gengar is already there, nothing you could do about it, whether you regret it or not, then fine. I'm okay with the Umbreon pick. That obviously is going to be scary for the Gar. Potentially the Tar could go Pursuit as well, though I think right now I like it better as a D-Deer. And that will also give him a special wall that he desperately needs. So it's a little bit earlier than most people would take Umbreon, but honestly, given the circumstances, I think it's a fine pick. I think the only argument against taking Umbreon here is that I don't think Gold was all that likely to take it anytime too soon. So for that reason, maybe he could have held off a little longer because it probably wasn't something that he needs to worry about getting scooped up by his opponent. But why risk it? If it makes sense, and it does, might as well grab it. I'm good with the Umbreon pick. Like I said, he needs the special wall, and it's also good against Gengar. Blaziken makes sense as well. Like I said, I think fire threats are a good place to be against Gold. I would like to see him load up a little more down this rabbit hole. I'd like to see him consider, like I said, Houndoom, Arcanine, whatever, and take this a little bit further. But you can only pick a couple pokes at a time. Blaziken, I think, is a good starting point. The response from Gold: Gyarados and Heracross. Always a little bit scary to pick Gyarados into a Zapdos drafter. He's also got things like Starmie that are very good against it, but save one or two pretty hard counters. The Gyarados does threaten a lot of this stuff and does potentially seem very good in some of these matchups, depending on how Bokk configures his teams. Also, if we're going to get into the kind of match where the fighters are going to be split, which seems to be the case, they do have two each at the moment, then Intimidate is a precious commodity, and you certainly, I mean, he's got Medicham and Heracross, for example, and Aerodactyl. You really want to protect your guys from being intimidated if you can help it, and it puts even more value on the Arcanine that I already think should be prized in this matchup and should get picked up sooner rather than later from one of them. As far as the Heracross, it seems fine. Generically dangerous poke. Again, there are some things on the other side that deal with it, and I'm not seeing like the Celebes, the Reggies, the Lax that Heracross really makes lunch, but it's still a good mon. I don't know if this is like the world's greatest Heracross setup, but you can't go too far wrong with that guy. And I wonder at what point Weezing gets picked up by either of the players. That would certainly be a mon that I would take a look at, given the way that this is shaping up. So the final picks of this round for Bokk: absolutely Windmill Slam dominating the Spiker Spinner War. Going to grab Cloyster here, and he's going to grab Miltank as well. Gold, if he's going to fight the Spiker Spinner War, is going to have to settle for lesser spinners, given where we are now. He's going to have to, like I said, the Donphans, the Blastoises, the Armaldos, the Tentacruels of the world. Those are playable, but not nearly as exciting as some of the top-end ones that have already been grabbed, all of which have been grabbed by Bokk. Gold has neither spikers nor spinners at the moment, and like I said, we're going to see later on if he is just going to pick up a bunch of janky spinners later on, or if he is just resigned to, I kind of already lost this war, let's try to win another way. As far as the Miltank pick, I think that Thick Fat has some obvious merit against Gold, and I think that Miltank has been an overperformer and a generically good mon thus far. So I don't even think you specifically need to pick it to counter anything, though it is good against Moltres and Regice, just as an example. But good Gloomon where you can't go too far wrong. And like I said, Miltank, I think, should probably be higher than it is on most people's tier list. It's been an overperformer up to this point. So we go to the third and final round of just kidding. Did I? Okay, I missed something. I'm sorry, guys. I somehow skipped a whole entire line. We're going to have to back that up. The Cloister and the Miltank were actually picked by Gold. Let me go ahead and fix that real quick. I'm not sure how I missed the line, but it was actually Houndoom and Alakazam that were picked here. My bad. And then Cloister Miltank. Okay, that changes things. Let's back that up. Sorry about that. Okay, so the Houndoom, great pick. So you now have double, potentially triple Pursuiter into the Gengar. So this is good. And then the Alakazam is a safe pick because you have basically all the Pursuiters locked up. So a lot of its main counters are gone. So I do like these picks, and they make sense to me. And Doom, like I said, in addition to targeting the Gar, is a fire type attacker. So this is good. Let's flip that over. So Gold is going to participate somewhat in the Spiker Spinner war. There are still triple Spinner on the other side, but he does finally add a Spiker or a Spinner for himself. And then the Miltank, all the things that I said still applicable. It's probably a smidge better against Gold than it is against Bokk, but it is still a good Gloomon. Sorry about that little confusion. Let's get on with it properly. Bokk with a ban. Sceptile. Sure, I mean, he's got multiple weaknesses, right? The T-Tar, the Milo, the Swampert, the Starmie, none of those really love it. The Claydol, those are a bunch of grass weaknesses, just a general fast, good mon. I can see why he would want to remove that. On the flip side, it's going to be Machamp for Gold, who still has a number of fighting weaknesses, and in fact picked up 2 more in the Cloister and the Miltank, so I mean, he does have some resistances as well at this point, the Gengar, the Moltres, the Gyarados, but more weaknesses than resistances for sure. Probably still doesn't overly want to play against fighters given his current state of the draft. Bokk is going to remove Dugtrio. Doesn't make too much sense to me. I mean, there's a couple targets. There's like T-Tar kinda, sorta, but not always, not usually even. Starmie kinda, sorta. And then I guess the targets that you do want to protect are Blaziken and Houndoom. But like most of the time, if Dugtrio is coming in on you, it's because you just killed something or they already did their job. I don't know. You guys know that I don't love Dugtrio to begin with. In this case, it's like not blatantly good or blatantly bad. There are a couple targets, but doesn't excite me. And then on the flip side of that, it's going to be a Kingdra pick, or Kingdra ban rather. Don't know that I really love that either. I mean, if you're monopolizing the special walls, I don't think you should be all that worried about a Kingdra. I feel like there's got to be something stronger that you can remove there. I guess Gold wasn't going to pick it, and I mean that's fine, but I don't know. From Gold's seat, I don't think I'd be all that worried about a Kingdra, but he sees it differently, so Kingdra will go. Into the third round of picks, Bokk is going to go Vaporeon Steelix. I certainly think, I mentioned the Steelix before, but I certainly think that that would have been a better ban over Kingdra and probably should have been removed at some point, but that's a good pickup against an Aerodactyl double electric drafter, so good for him. The Vaporeon is going to really make the bulky water options for Gold pretty limited at this point. Like I said, he's going to have to look at, like, I guess, Slowbro, or, I mean, that's really the last good one, unless you count Porygon 2. Some other stuff, Slowking, Lapras, Walrein, it's like, it's playable to an extent, but they certainly have some problems, and I think that it's tricky for Gold, because, like, there are things that I like about his draft, but he's getting crushed on the Spiker Spinner Ward, he's getting crushed on Bulky Waters, and going to be really hard when we're already in round 3 to make headway on both of those. He's kind of going to have a weakness that he's just going to have to concede somewhere, but we'll see how he chooses to shore up these holes. He's going to go with Double Grass to kick us off in round 3 by way of Ludicolo and Venusaur. Probably along the lines of the Sceptile, there are simply many grass weaknesses over here on the other side, including the Vaporeon that he just picked up. And I also think he's protecting his electrics a little bit by doing this. He did not protect them by removing the Steelix, but these grasses that resist Thunderbolt, I mean, Ludicolo takes it neutrally, but you know what I mean, are in fact good pickups. There are a number of ice weaknesses starting to accrue for gold, but he also does have pretty good ice resistances. Regice, Steelix, Cloyster, Miltank, so probably not the end of the world. On the flip side, I think this dude should have been taken quite some time ago, but better late than never. It is Arcanine and Porygon 2. Arcanine good for all the reasons that we discussed. When the fighters are split as they are, Intimidate is where you want to be, and he's got that. And then Fire is still a good attacking type against Gold, and in fact, he just picked up an additional Fire weakness in Venusaur. Porygon 2, huh? Yeah, I mean, hey, Jolteon and Flygon are definitely two of the most desirable trace targets, so that alone could warrant a pick. But the other thing is that Bokk is trying to monopolize anything even remotely effing resembling a bulky water, and he has certainly done that, and Gold is pretty high and dry in that regard at this point. And he doesn't seem too concerned about it because on his picks, he's going to, again, not even take like Slowbro or anything. He just doesn't care. He's just given up on the whole bulky water thing. He's going to go with Scizor and Donphan. I am glad that he picks up a spinner here. He super duper needs it. So it is one spiker, two spinners for gold versus all three spinners, but only one spiker for Bokk. So perhaps the two spinners for gold will be enough unless Bokk gets random Quillfish or whatever late in this draft and adds an additional spiker threat. But yeah, the Donphan, I think, a necessary pickup. Another ice weakness if you're worried about it. Scizor is mysterious to me. I mean, looking at the other side, there's the Ments, there's a couple Firemons, there's many bulky waters. I'm not sure that this is the squad that you want Scizor against. Scizor is not terrible, and last week it did win a game for Jabba, and we've seen Scizor sweeps, and I mean, anything that can have reversal is very dangerous in this format, as we've all come to learn, but I'm not seeing the Celebes and just the obvious things that you would want Scizor against on the other side. And I see a lot of things that kind of give Scizor a hard time. Double Intimidate, multiple fires, bunch of bulky waters. Steelix. Yeah. Scizor pick I'm not that into. Like I said, I wonder why my buddy Weezing hasn't gotten grabbed, for example, or why he still doesn't want Slowbro or bulky water. I am not sure, but not super into the Scizor selection, I don't think. Bokk is going to go with Lantern and Articuno. Yeah, I mean, one of the weaknesses, because Bokk is crushing him on bulky waters and winning the Spiker Spinner War, so one of the things where Bokk does need a little bit of help is the special wall department. He did a good thing in picking up the Umbreon earlier, and now he's going to add Articuno, which I think will be helpful to him and can wall a lot of this stuff. For example, Articuno can wall Jolteon or Gengar. Doesn't feel like it should be able to, but it largely can. The Lantern is also going to be additional help against the electric, so I think that Bokk is doing a good job addressing that. As far as water, rather, as an attacking type against gold, meh. Not a lot of water weaknesses over here. Plenty of things that could take surf, so I don't know. The Lantern does not blow me away. It doesn't offend me either. The Articuno pick I like. The Lantern I could take or leave, but Bokk clearly understands what his weaknesses are in this draft, and he is trying to address them, so I can appreciate that. On the flip side, better late than never, Tauros and Blastoise. The Blastoise in particular, I think is a good pick because it kills two much-needed birds with one stone. He needs bulky waters, and he needs spinners. Certainly bulky waters more so at this point. But Blastoise is going to play the role of both. So that is a third spinner for gold. Granted, with only one spiker on the other side, does he need three spinners? Maybe not at this point, but he does need bulky waters. Probably the fact that my opponent now has three spinners, if I'm Bokk, would discourage me from wasting one of my last picks on Quillfish or whatever random spiker, Glalie, whoever you want. Good mon, Glalie, but I don't know. Triple spinner on the other side makes it less exciting to me, so I think I would probably just take something else if I were Bokk. And then Tauros is just generic glue. I always do a quick normal resist count when Tauros gets picked, and I believe at a glance there's 3 for Bokk. The Cheetar, the Fortress, and the Steelix, 2 of whom need to be very careful switching into Tauros, because obviously it could just click Earthquake instead, so the Tauros very well might get value for gold. And then wrapping up the draft for Bokk, he's going to cut off the Slowbro. Not that he needs an additional bulky water, but he wants to really make sure that gold doesn't have any. And then he's going to grab Misdreavus as well, which is something he could take very safely because he made a point to take the Umbreon and the Houndoom earlier. So it's going to be very, very hard for gold to pursuit away ghosts. And I actually think that this Misdreavus is like basically almost guaranteed to get played and is going to be really, really good value. When you've got all of Cheetar, Umbreon, Houndoom locked up, you can really, really get there with Ghosts, and that's going to really make it difficult for gold to spin. So I would imagine that whatever team the Fori is on, since that is ultimately his only spiker, the Misdreavus will be on as well, and I think that's pretty good at blocking the particular spinners that he has. So I think that's a good pick. I think that Misdreavus is going to go probably very heavy special defense, which is going to protect it against the Cloyster and the Blastoise. And then, of course, just by way of having Levitate, you are protected from the Donphan mostly. It can randomly have Toxic or HP Ghost or whatever, but Misdreavus probably gets the better end in that matchup most of the time. Slowbro, I don't know if he'll play. I could see the Slowbro and the Lantern being 2 of the 3 pokes that ultimately end up getting cut. Slowbro doesn't necessarily have to function as a bulky water. He can just run it like very offensively as a mixed threat or a CM sweeper or what have you. But I do like that he is limiting the options even further for gold. And I don't know if I were gold, what the hell my last pick bulky water would be at this point. Are we taking Slow King? Are we taking Lapras? The options are pretty much depleted. So I think that this is an acceptable pick, whether he ultimately ends up playing it or not. And indeed, gold does not take a bulky water. He takes a 4th spinner that I don't think he needs, but he can obviously treat Armaldo as something other than a spinner. It could just be a Swords Dance attacker or a knockoff user or what have you. Usually Armaldo gets picked into Lax, which with the Lax ban is obviously not the case here. I wonder if there weren't something better available than Armaldo. Again, I'm kind of surprised that Wheezing, for example, was not picked in this draft. That kind of stands out to me as something that I probably personally prefer there over Armaldo, but that's just nitpicky. Armaldo's fine, and there are multiple bug weaknesses on the other side. The Cheetar, the Zapdos, the Starmie, the Salamence, the Slowbro. Just off the top of my head. The Blaze, again, there's a couple things here. There's a bunch of things that would not take Armaldo's attacks all that well. So if you could give it some T-Wave support and set it up with SD or sub or whatever and get that guy going, maybe Armaldo can be a threat. So, little blemish in the side where I didn't know which player drafted the Cloyster in the Miltank. Sorry again about that. That is our draft. You guys will have to let me know, as always, what you guys think in the comments as far as my prediction. I think I'm going to give the advantage to Bokk. I mean, Gold did do a good job addressing the Spiker Spinner problem. I mean, another thing that you could argue for Bokk, right? I don't know that he's going to actually do this, but if you're Bokk, you could just like never bring the Fori at all and just force Gold to have a spinner in all 3 games and then just not even bother with the Spiker. That would be an option. That's going to mess with his builder every game. But yeah, I mean, maybe the Spiker spinner thing, I'm overblowing a little bit. Maybe he's not as dominant there as he was before, since Gold did end up at the end picking up a bunch of spinners. So maybe that's not as big of a deal. I do think that Gold has the special wall advantage, though I do think Bokk did what he could to address that as we went on. I think the bulky water discrepancy is a big one. I think that basically any remotely playable, remotely viable bulky water is quite good in this format. And I think the fact that Bokk monopolized them so hard, I think is going to be really, really relevant, especially when bulky waters are what you want against Salamence, Blaziken, Arcanine, those kind of Pokemon. Like, can you argue that Bokk didn't push it as far and didn't take enough things that want bulky waters to be gone? Maybe, but like I said, Cheetar, Salamence, Blaziken, Arcanine, that's a pretty good starting point. Those are all things that you'd really like a bulky water against. As far as I'm still baffled by the Gengar. It's never in this format gotten to round 2 before, and I don't think it ever should. But I think that was well addressed by Bokk with the double pursuit user. And I think the double pursuit user really opened up a lot for him. It opened up the Alakazam. It opened up taking the Misdreavus. It makes it so the Gar is not so scary. I do really like the double pursuit user. The Umbreon pick I was fine with at the time, but I think it turned out even better than I thought. And as far as what's stopping fire attackers for gold, he's probably going to have to get a little bit creative. I mean, Blissey, right? But, I mean, even within that, like, one of the fire attackers is Blaziken. Blissey doesn't stop that. Houndoom can have beat up, for example. Blissey doesn't necessarily stop that. Blissey's probably the safest bet, and even that, I don't know that it's, like, totally safe. But the Regice and the Registeel are obviously going to have a hard time. And then the fact that he only has Blastoise as a bulky water is going to stretch him pretty thin in that regard as well. I think the fire attackers, all three of them, the Blaziken, the Houndoom, and the Arcanine, I think they're all going to be good for Bokk. So as I say most of the time, I don't feel like this was a stomp, but I do give the advantage in this particular draft to Bokk. I have no clue where they stand as a player. Can't be worse than gold. But strictly based on the draft, my prediction is going to be a Bokk victory. But as always, like I said, we have a comment section for a reason. Let me know what you guys think, who you think won the draft, and why. And when the games happen, you know that it'll be here on YouTube. Till then, see you guys in the next video, and thank you for watching.